Woman and Dyna Girl meet Alibaba. Electra Woman and Dyna Girl meet Alibaba.
Dyna Girl has changed from superheroine to supervillain.
And Electra Woman and the Professor are trapped. Can they escape?
Welcome back, my friends, to an all-new episode of the Batcave Podcast. It's your crime scope here, John S. Drew. I figure let's start doing this here. I'll be introducing myself as Crime Scope, knowing all that's going on in the world of Electra Woman, as that's what we're going to be talking about today. And, of course, we're going to be talking about it with our own Frank himself from the Flopcast, Mr. Kevin Eldridge. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, John. Yes, I've got my big scruffy brown sweater on. I'm in full Heflin mode. Let's do this. Man, it's been a long time. It's been so long since we did this Electra Woman show.
I know. And here's the funny part. It's like, there's only 8 episodes. You would think we could just knock these out and just be done with them, you know? And I shouldn't say it like that. Be done. Like, because I'm really enjoying these.
Yeah, oh yeah, we are stretching this out as much as we possibly can. We've made this our life's work, and so literally years have gone by in between episodes.
and sadly, during this time, we actually lost someone in. I would say, I don't know if everybody in Electra fandom would say it, but in the Electra Woman family, that being Markie Post.
Yeah, just recently, as we record, that was just a couple of weeks ago, I guess. Markie Post, who I think we certainly have to consider part of the Electra Woman and Dyna Girl family, and in kind of an odd way. And that was the pilot, the never aired pilot from, what year was that?
I want to
2000s?
Early 2000s. Yeah. I even want to go so far as say 2001. I want to pin it down, but I'm not certain.
Yeah, that sounds about right, and it's out there. And I think the plan is we'll do a whole show about Markie Post's pilot when we get to the end of the regular series. Hopefully, we'll get around to that. But yeah, certainly worth mentioning. Yeah, who didn't love Markie Post? She was terrific, and just such a constant presence on TV. Clear through the 80s and 90s, going back to The Fall Guy, and then Night Court, of course, was probably what people best know her from. And then she just kept going after that. She did Hearts of Fire with John Ritter. So very impressive career on Markie Post. And for our purposes, in the middle of all that, she got to be Electra Woman in that very odd pilot.
Yes, she did. And something else too that I know, but yet for some reason I seem to always need to be reminded of it. I'm a huge game show fanatic. And Markie Post actually got her feet wet in the industry by being a producer on some of these game shows of the past, like Double Dare with Alex Trebek.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She was also one of the letter turners, apparently. I got to find it, though, on Card Sharks in the 70s. Letter turners, card turners.
Oh, she got to flip the giant.
She got
playing cards.
Yes.
I love those giant cards. I would like a deck like that.
Oh, I own 2 decks.
You got the giant cards?
I've got the giant cards. Oh, they're available on Amazon.
I had no idea.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
I've got my giant ones.
You're going to call my bluff. Now I guess I have to really get myself the giant cards.
Giant deck of cards. And then, of course, I'm also fascinated with the really tiny ones. Have you ever seen those?
Yeah, they make it all sizes, whatever size playing card you want. I know Penn and Teller made a giant deck of cards like out of metal once. I don't know if you ever saw that trick that they used to do.
No.
They called it the world's biggest card trick, I think. And they had giant, like, I don't know if they were like 4 or 5 foot tall, big, thick, heavy metal playing cards, a full deck, and they would shuffle them using forklifts. And Teller would each get in a forklift to work these cards. And they did a card trick with it. Yeah.
Well, that's a little bigger than even what we saw in Card Sharks then. They're using
bigger than Markie Post's cards.
Yes.
But yeah, it's nice to think of Markie, though. And also, I think what just occurred to me, it's been so long since we did one of these Electra Woman shows, is we also lost Joe Ruby and Ken Spears.
Yes, we did. We did. Wow.
Of course, Electra Woman was a Croft show, but it was, they hired Ruby Spears to actually do the production work on it. So this was a Ruby Spears thing. Before Ruby Spears was their own company, Ruby Spears worked for Hanna-Barbera, of course, and then everybody wanted to work with Ruby and Spears. These were the guys with the golden touch in the 70s, creators of Scooby-Doo when they were over at Hanna-Barbera, and they did so much stuff for Hanna-Barbera, and then did Electra Woman for the Crofts.
Mm-hmm. Now
such great work. Then, of course, did their own Ruby Spears productions after that with Thundar the Barbarian, and, Plastic Man, and lots of fantastic shows from them.
Speaking of losing, also, has it been that long that we've not spoken? Because I think also in this past year we lost Sid Haig, or has that been longer?
I think that goes back a little longer.
Okay.
Yes, it's from a couple of years ago, I think.
Okay.
My podcast is the Flopcast, and we do every January, we do a couple of episodes, just a memorial show looking at everybody who died the previous years. And I think that's at least a couple of years ago that Sid Haig, who's very relevant to, I think, the show we're about to discuss.
Exactly, yep. And that episode being Alibaba, just quick background here, aired October 23rd and 30th, the 2 parts of 1976 on the Croft Super Show, written by Dick Robbins and Dwayne Poole. I think we've spoken about them before. They did a number of 70s and 80s cartoon staples. Poole moved on first to primetime TV with shows like Heart to Heart before settling in as a Hallmark movie writer himself. The episode directed by Walter C. Miller, who directed most of the episodes of this series. And I know we talked about him in the past. He was our award show man. He did directing of the Emmys, the Oscars, all those, award shows in the 70s and 80s. He was on top of that as their director. He passed away, actually, this past year in November of 2020.
Welcome to the death episode of Electra Woman and Dyna Girl on the Batcave Podcast.
I know, right? Oh, my gosh. And like we said, the first thing right off the bat, this episode is notable for 2 of the cast members, that being, as we mentioned, the aforementioned Sid Haig. He's playing the genie to Malachi Throne's Alibaba, our main villain in this piece.
Herein lurks a most sinister villain, Alibaba.
Oh, genie, I command you to appear.
I hasten to answer your summons, O great Alibaba.
Observe, genie, observe. That blip is a most welcome signal.
Professor Nabokov is right on schedule.
Yes, and fortunately he prefers to fly his own private airplane. Turn on the magnetic ray and bring down that airplane.
I hear and obey, O great Ali. Magnetic ray has made contact with the airplane. Soon, you will be the world's most powerful man.
Yeah, man, there's a guy with some credits.
Oh yeah, I like to call
Batcave Podcast, right? We gotta. He did Batman 66.
He did Batman 66. Sid Haig did Batman 66. Yeah.
Oh, Sid did as well. Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Malachi Throne was Falseface. Yes, in the first season. And Sid Haig played the alchemist in a King Tut episode in the second season.
Oh, I forgot all about that.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Very nice. A couple of Bat villains now facing Electra Woman and Dyna Girl. Yeah, Malachi Throne. I think he guested on all of the Irwin Allen shows at one time or another.
At one time or another, yep.
Land of the Giants and Time Tunnel. I think he did all that stuff as well. So, one of my favorite shows is Arc 2 from this era, the Filmation show, and he did Arc 2 as well.
He was, as I like to call him, the king of the two-parters. Because if you think about it, he was False Face in a 2-part Batman story. He was in the 2-part Menagerie episode of Star Trek where they recycled footage from the original pilot, The Cage. He was in the 2-part $6 Million Man episode that introduced the Bionic Woman. He's in this 2-part episode here, and he would show up on Star Trek The Next Generation in the 2-part episode, I believe it was called Redemption, which saw the return of Leonard Nimoy as Spock.
Oh, right. Wow.
The king of the two-parters.
That must have been that was in his contract, I guess. If you want me for one episode, you got to give me 2.
Yes.
I like that.
If I got to get up in the morning, make it worth my time.
And Sid Haig.
Yeah.
I mean, there's where do you even begin with? I mean, I guess you begin with he did like those creepy horror movies way back in the 60s. He was really young, and I remember seeing him in like black and white horror stuff from way back then. The Pam Grier, like blaxploitation movies of the early 70s. He was in several of those.
Yep.
There's a bunch of those movies, like you can't even tell one from the next. They go to the Philippines and just shoot all those low-budget movies with Pam Grier and Sid Haig.
Yes.
I love him on Jason of Star Command as well.
Yes, that's right.
Another live-action Saturday morning show of this era from Filmation, and a wonderful, super fun science fiction show, and what a great villain he was on that. And he would almost always be a villain. He just had that scary, creepy smile. Mm-hmm. So fun to watch. There's
a recent episode of the podcast Sci-Fi 5 produced by the Roddenberry people who did a thing on Sid Haig. They do, because Sci-Fi 5, it's every day. They take a point in science fiction history and talk about it for 5 minutes. So they did one on Sid Haig. It was his birthday. And I didn't know this, learning this from, he actually got tired of doing those roles. He got tired of being typecast as the villainous, horrific kind of person, and he actually dropped out of acting for several years until he got brought back in with one role, and I'm forgetting now what the role was, but it was a much more serious, gave him an opportunity to really act, and then he got tapped by Rob Zombie to appear in some of his horror films.
Yep.
And he went back into it again.
Yeah, and that's good for him. I think it's probably that's the kind of role that he was born to play, and I could see getting tired of doing the same kind of role. But also, if there's something that works for you, there's thousands of aspiring actors that would switch places and have the career that Sid Haig had. So I would hope that he got comfortable with it in his that kind of third act of his career, doing the Rob Zombie stuff, and I know he was doing the horror conventions and meeting the fans. So I would hope that he appreciated how loved he was by people for all those creepy horror parts that he spent all those decades doing.
Yeah, my understanding was he did appreciate that, and that he. From what, if I remember the piece correctly on Sci-Fi 5, he also enjoyed going to those shows. That was like something he looked forward to.
That's good. That's nice to hear. Nice to hear when the actors are having fun at those events. And I'm afraid I never got to see him in person. Our paths never crossed. Even though I'm someone who also does, you and I both have been known to pop up at all the various nerd festivals. But I never saw Sid in person. Sorry to say.
Yeah. Yeah. No, me either.
Sid Haig in this episode. I like the. As the genie, like the shiny gold vest. I was reminded of Shana Na. He was wearing that same shiny gold that those guys were wearing at the same time.
Yep. I thought it interesting, though, because the whole premise is that Alibaba has access to this magic at his disposal via the genie, and yet he uses science. He has a magnetic ray that he uses to bring down the personal plane of Professor Nebakov.
Yeah, well, it's one of those, and I think we've seen this in previous episodes, where there's kind of a reveal that, oh, we're just using tricks. That like Sid isn't really even a genie. But it's also weird that there's that opening scene where it's just the two of them alone. And, well, if this is all fakes and trickery, then who are you doing this for right now? Like, you're performing these tricks to an audience of no one, except for the kids watching the Electra Woman show. I know we had at least one previous episode where it was similarly, there's kind of a misdirect, there's a reveal that, oh, actually, this is the case. And we get that in this one as well, that Alibaba and the genie are just, they're just using science and trickery.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we've ever had an episode so far with anybody who's actually had powers that seemed like they could have been mysterious that in the end turned out to be more science-based or just a fraud altogether. Yeah.
Well, there was an Empress of Evil turning out to be a robot.
Yes.
There was that similarly kind of a twist on what was really up with the villains in that one.
Right. and by the way, that Professor Nebikoff, actor-writer Ian Martin. Yeah. Interesting man, because his career sort of bounces all over the place.
Yeah, he did quite a bit of acting, looking him up, through the 50s and 60s, and then was doing a lot of writing credits in the 60s and 70s also, including another Saturday morning show of this era. He has a writing credit on Land of the Lost.
Yeah, that's something. I kind of always find those kind of actors, those kind of people more interesting sometimes than just the mainstream actors, because it's like you kind of touched all the bases. You got to write, you got to, some got to produce, some directed, and then still also appeared in front of the camera.
Yeah, these were creative people. Mm-hmm. And I like that there are people in Hollywood doing multiple things like this. And you're not going to have a giant acting career, but I can write, I can direct, I can produce. Mm-hmm. So, impressive credits on our Russian scientist played by Ian Martin.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to interview William Dozier, the producer of Batman 66, his daughter, a few years back. And I didn't even know this till she brought it up in the interview, because I never paid that much attention to Dozier's credits. I mean, I knew about Green Hornet, and I knew about his other attempts to get other heroes on the screen and stuff, but I didn't realize that he too had a second act of sorts, and he did acting. He was a judge in a TV movie in the 70s and 80s. That was basically his second act. He wasn't producing much anymore. He got acting gigs. Wow. So that's always kind of cool. Like I say, that makes him a much more interesting, suddenly, character to me, an individual, because it's like, wow, you really went and touched the bases when it comes to the creative side of Hollywood.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Yeah. So Baba wants to bring down this plane of Nebikoff's there. And meanwhile, we've also got our opening scene with Laurie and Judy. They're learning about the conference of scientists that they have to get to cover when they get a call from Frank.
The Electra cops. What's up, Frank?
CrimeScope has just monitored a report of a mysterious aircraft disappearance. A scientist was on that plane, headed for that convention you're covering.
We'll be right there, Frank. Let's go.
Yeah, they're walking out of a science convention.
Yes.
And I was amused by Laurie as they're walking out. She says, "This should make quite a story for Newsmakers magazine." And I thought, really? What's the headline? Like, science convention happens. There's no news yet in this thing for Newsmakers magazine, but they were excited anyway. Yeah, when the call from Frank comes in.
Mm-hmm. You notice, though, we're now doing shortcuts. We're not wasting time showing them pulling up to the house or heading through it to get to Electra-Base. Instead, they just come right out of the elevator.
Yeah, this was a quick cut to just, here we are, what's going on, Frank? Which, I love that elevator. I know we've spoken of that before. But
yes. Oh, yeah.
I want that elevator in my house.
Yes, I do too.
Just effectively, it's so effective in that it reads as elevator, even though it isn't. Obviously, it's just, there's just a light that they shine on the wall that pans down. There's a big arrow pointing down, and then the doors open. Okay. Really, we're in the basement. Here's Frank.
Yuri Nabokov, Russian, tops in his field.
Isn't he he the one whose plane mysteriously disappeared?
That's right, and carrying with him the new metamorphosis formula, the formula which can turn sad people into happy ones and turn a loyal dog into a ferocious beast.
Oh, like having the opposite effect on anything or anyone that it's used on.
Yes, exactly.
Electra trouble. Just think what could happen if it falls into the wrong hands.
Now, you mentioned a moment ago how, what news is there? Like, this should have been the lead in their little discussion, but instead we get it here.
Yeah, that's quite a formula.
It's quite a formula, but you see, had they done that at the beginning, the scene of, hey, this would go great with Newsmaker would make sense, because it's like, that's news.
Right. Yeah, it's a formula that only a supervillain would really have any use for, and that is the case here.
And again, then it comes back to, because we don't know this yet, because as I'm sitting there and I'm watching it, why doesn't Alibaba just use the genie to get the riches he wants? Why is he bothering again, utilizing and taking advantage of science? And I'm sorry, I'm going to be a little snarky here. I'm told science doesn't know anything these days, so, Why doesn't he just? And granted, as you say, we're going to learn later on, it's all a fake. But it's just this whole thing. You set this up, and you're sitting there going, "Do some magic, do some magic."
Yeah, it does. If you really have a genie, there would be much easier ways to meet your goals.
Yes,
but instead, no, we're going to. Get Yuri Nabokov and get his metamorphosis formula.
Mm-hmm. Although he's reluctant to do it for a while there, to the point where Baba has to say, "You've exhausted my impatience," as he has the genie place him in the lamp. So that sort of happens.
Yeah, I don't know how this... We might be giving this more thought than the writers did. There's one thing to say this is all being done by magic and trickery. Well, what kind of trick sends a guy into a magic lamp? I don't know where they sent him. Although, I did notice that after they send Nabokov inside the magic lamp, but then when they come back from commercial... He's outside the magic lamp,
yes,
sitting there with Alibaba and the genie, with no explanation to the home viewer.
Right. And I finally realized one thing here that villains should also come to realize: stop contacting Electra-Base.
Another few seconds, and Crime Scope should have it.
The viewing monitor. Our old friend, Alibaba.
In case you're wondering what's happened to Professor Nabokov, let me assure you he is in good hands, depending, of course, on one's point of view. And you will never find him, Electra Woman and Dyna Girl. Never!
Well, that's perfect timing on Alibaba's part. We'll just zero Crime Scope in on the exact point of transmission.
Then let's get going. You can feed the readout to us in Electra car.
No, wait. I have a new attachment for your Electra comps. It could come in handy.
What does it do, Frank?
Exactly as the name implies, Electra Freeze. It can change the temperature of any object to below freezing. Aim your Electra comp at that sea shell and punch up a double warp program. Clear ice. Watch.
Electra, cool, Frank. Now when we tell Alibaba to freeze, he'll really know what we mean.
You've got a point there, Dyna Girl. Come on, we better get going.
Crime Scope's located Alibaba's hideout. I'm feeding you the coordinate now.
The electric tracking beam signal is coming in loud and clear. We should be there any minute.
That cave must be Alibaba's hideout. This was Electra easy.
Too easy, Dyna Girl.
Watch yourselves. Alibaba is a master of dirty tricks.
because every time you contact Electra-Base to brag to the two of them and Frank immediately goes and zeroes in on your location with, Crime Scope. It's like, stop it. You just made, at least Batman had to sit there and go, okay, we've got 3 possible locations that the villain might be located in based on their theme this week. Let's feed them into the Bat computer and stuff. But no, we make it easier for you. We're going to contact you so you come and get me.
Electra Woman's villains, could not wait to get in touch. They've got her on speed dial. They love to just call right in and pop up on that video monitor and say, hey, here we are. It's time to do battle.
It's time to do battle, and you're not going to catch me this time. Oh, yeah, Frank? But of course, we also have another trope then of Electra Woman here that we're quickly discovering. You can see the tropes here. Frank tells them he's got a new item for the Electra cops, a freeze ray.
Yes.
The
Electra Freeze.
The Electra Freeze.
And to demonstrate it, standing by there, he's like, let's try this on that big seashell that happens to be sitting over there. And it's a kind of a silly looking trick where I guess it transforms things into ice. You shoot the Electra Freeze at something, and then it turns transparent and then can shatter.
Yeah, it's electrified liquid nitrogen.
Sure. But yeah, they zap the seashell. It turns clear and kind of flops over. Mm-hmm. Dyna Girl declares that this is Electra cool. I agree.
Yes, it is. It is a cool item to have for your Electra comps there. Very useful. Especially also if nothing else, it's like, oh, there's only warm soda left. Well, let's just Electra Freeze it.
Yes.
Now, something else, too, that is a trope of this show that I didn't catch on until watching these 2 episodes that we're covering, because just to pull the curtain back, folks, Kevin and I are sitting down and we're recording 2 in a row here, is that basically every time they went to a commercial or got to the end, obviously, of the episode, there would be a cliffhanger. In this case, the 2 arrive at Alibaba's base. He's able to quickly subdue them, places them in nets above boiling oil that he's lowering them down into.
I've been keeping the pots boiling for you.
I can see there's no oil shortage here.
And there's no power shortage here.
They're no good. You have none of your powers.
He's right, Electra Woman. Our electric comps don't work.
What do you mean they don't work? You've got full power from this end.
It's not getting through, Frank.
What have you done with Professor Nabokov?
It's no concern of yours. However, I do have the famous Professor Nabokov under my control. And now, I have the great Electra Woman and Dyna Girl.
It appears that our daring pair are trapped for good this time.
Go to commercial. And I thought I'm like, yeah, what a way to get the kids to stay around and make sure they see how Electra Woman gets out of it. Because I don't ever remember that even with Batman. Like, you go to commercial and it was just, oh, we failed here, Robin, but next time or something, and then we'll go back and come back and maybe we're back at Wayne Manor or back down in the Batcave and investigating some more. Cliffhangers were always for the end of the episode. Here, they always get Electra Woman and Dyna Girl in some sort of situation at the commercial as well that they got to get out of.
Yeah, and I guess they were pretty effective about that, and perhaps it was because these were shorter shows. These were not half-hour episodes originally. They were 2 15-minute episodes or 12-minute episodes with a commercial break, and so that kind of tightens up the storytelling process. These Electra Woman episodes really move along. It's quick little scenes, and it's all action.
Yes. Yep. Frank figures out that the gong that Alibaba keeps hitting has created a sound wave interference that's interfering with the power flow, so he goes to work on CrimeScope to fix it and counter it.
I'm glad you said that, because kind of the Electra Woman style techno babble.
Oh,
I have a hard time keeping up with everything Frank is figuring out every week.
I got to admit, this is a very techno babble heavy show.
Yep.
It really is. Especially when we get to the next episode with the Return of the Sorcerer. Heavy technobabble there. We're talking about the time-space continuum and all.
While they're hanging over those boiling oil pots, though, they're in those just tall, skinny nets hanging over the pots. And I always enjoyed Dyna Girl's little sarcastic comments, and she got off a great one there. And timely, considering this was the mid-'70s. Dyna Girl says, "I can see there's no oil shortage here."
Yes.
Yeah, very, very current event, a very topical reference from Dyna Girl.
I sometimes think she got better dialogue than Burt Ward did.
I think she did.
So Alibaba gives the professor a chance by saying he'll release the two if the professor gives him the formula, so he concedes. But the two are able to get power thanks to Frank's manipulation at CrimeScope. They freeze the oil as Baba and Jeannie escape with the formula.
Yep. And it's one of those kind of, how many shortcuts do we need to get through this action? Because you don't really see the Electra freezing terribly clearly. It's like the nets kind of suddenly just disappear.
Yes.
Off camera.
Yes. Well, that's the thing, too, is that then it's like you talk about shortcuts. Things kind of move very quickly because, and I forget exactly because I didn't watch this again. I have my notes here, but I'm trying. Maybe you can fill me in on this. How did they get Dyna? Oh, duh. How did they get her? They used the formula to change Dyna Girl into a villain.
Yeah, they're all running away.
Yes.
Nabokov and Electra Woman and Dyna Girl. Dyna Girl's kind of behind the other two.
Yes.
And, they spray her with Metamorphosis Formula number 5.
It's time for a change. A special fragrance designed especially for you. Metamorphosis Formula number 5. It's working! The Metamorphosis Formula has turned her into her exact opposite. Dyna Girl has changed from superheroine to supervillain.
They did this also on Batman. There was one episode there where Burt Ward got to be the bad guy because Catwoman hits him with her catatonic or cataphrensy or something like that, and he just becomes, and he and Batman get into a slugfest and everything, but like he just goes over the top, and she's doing it here too with the cackling and everything.
Oh, and this is another, it's a trope, in a superhero show, you love to see that there's an evil version of the hero, and yeah, here's Dyna Girl's chance to go completely opposite of Dyna Girl, and I love this. I think this was a highlight of the series, is seeing Dyna Girl go bad.
Yes. Yeah.
They put the makeup on her. She suddenly just looks kind of gray.
Yes.
Dark lipstick. This is like goth Dyna Girl.
Yeah, I guess the formula also changes your physical appearance while you're at it too.
Yes, it does. and the laughing, I was thinking about this. Here's Judy Strangis has spent this series watching all the guest villains get to laugh maniacally nonstop, and now it's her turn. She is just laughing maniacally, just like all the villains do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now as the villain and joining up with Alibaba, she tricks Electra Woman into a trap where Electra Woman and the professor are placed in a sand tube, and the sand starts dropping down on the two of them. Dyna Girl orders Frank to cut off Electra Woman's electrocomp, saying that Alibaba has captured it, and basically they head off, leaving the two there for their sand trap at the end of part 1.
Your formula. They've used it on Dyna Girl.
Yes. I wish I had never invented it.
And now for the third phase of my plan, my dear Professor Nabokov. Dyna Girl will help me get to Electra-Base, where I will take over Crime Scope. And with that fantastic computer and the supervillainous Dyna Girl, no man, no country can stop me from taking what I want. Least of all you, Electra Woman.
How will Electra Woman and Nabokov escape the cascading sand? Is Dyna Girl doomed to a life of villainy? Don't miss next week's exciting conclusion.
Our dream house.
Yeah. Can't wait to move in.
Let's send everyone our new address.
But the house won't be ready for 6 weeks.
Look, we want our bank statements on time.
Yeah.
And our credit card
Yeah.
and charge account bills.
You're right.
Your post office has a free change of address kit with cards to tell everyone exactly when you're moving.
Better make sure you tell everyone our right address.
Get the change of address kit from your post office or mailman. It makes things go smoother after you move.
Crime Scope is ours!
The transformed Dyna Girl has rendered Electra Woman helpless.
The formula! You've got to use the formula now!
Yes, Dyna Girl, yes.
I'm Cheesehead of the Jungle, and this is my pal Cheeser. We're wild about the cheddar cheese taste of Cheetos brand cheese-flavored Puffs. The snack with lots of cheese flavor in every crackly crunch. Cheetos, America's favorite cheese-flavored Puffs. The cheese that goes crust.
Sunshine Saturday, let's fly by free.
Crime Scope is ours!
The transformed Dyna Girl has aided the evil Alibaba in taking over Crime Scope and rendering Electra Woman helpless. Don't go away.
Yeah, I was wondering about this because Electra Woman and Dyna Girl drove in their little electric car over to Alibaba's secret headquarters. So does that mean that the three of them, did Dyna Girl, Alibaba, and the genie all pile into that little car together to go back to Electra-Base? They didn't show that, but they just suddenly have the three of them walking in on Frank. I like to think that they all squished into that little car together.
One would assume they did, because I can't imagine you can't get into Electra-Base with just any old vehicle.
Yeah.
You know? It's like we're pulling up in a truck.
I can't imagine that was a comfortable ride. In with Sid Haig in the electric car.
Right. you got Dyna Girl driving and Alibaba, and then in between them, squished up, is the genie.
Oh, I wish we could have seen that.
Well, part 2 opens with Dyna Girl leading them right into Electra-Base, and she quickly captures Frank, but not before he manages to get to the panel and restore power to Electra Woman. I don't know. I liked. It's funny because had they managed to just capture him and he didn't, I guess that would have been it, the end of the story. So we gotta we gotta do this. We gotta get the power to her. But I thought this was interesting too, though, is that at the same time, the base itself, like I said, you couldn't get into the base unless you had the electric car. So the base itself has its own mechanisms to defend itself because Alibaba manages to trip the intruder system and he and the genie are caught. But Dyna Girl quickly frees them with her identity code.
Yeah, when Alibaba is just randomly poking at buttons, and
yes,
just the word intruder just pops up on the monitor.
Yes,
and then there's just this big reddish video blob appears to hold them in place.
Yes,
Ollie and the genie. I like that.
Mm-hmm. And that's when Electra Woman arrives, and I'm thinking, how did she get there so quickly?
Yeah, I have a lot of questions about who was driving where. Where was the electric car through all of this? Maybe they left the car, Dyna Girl and the villains, and arrived by some other means, and thus leaving the car available for Electra Woman and Nabokov, perhaps. Who knows? Or maybe they just called Uber.
Electra Woman, am I glad to see you?
And so am I.
But certainly delicious. The great Electra Woman and Dyna Girl in a final showdown.
Frank, you and Nabokov stand aside.
You two better do the same.
I will take care of Electra Woman.
Stand aside!
Dyna Girl, you've been hit by the metamorphosis formula. You've got to shake it off.
I'm perfectly satisfied the way I am, Electra Woman.
I'm sorry, Dyna Girl.
Electra close, but not close enough.
Electra Woman.
Excellent, old Dyna Girl.
Quick, we must depart. We'll take him with us.
Just this one?
We no longer have any need for Nabokov. We have his formula, and it has done exceedingly well for us. Let us depart.
And so the evil trio departs with Heflin, leaving Nabokov and Electra Woman victims of the evil Dyna Girl.
What follows, I love, because this is right out of the Batman 66 animated feature, The Return of the Cape Crusaders. They have an Electra comp face-off.
Yes.
I just love that because they did that also. They had a utility belt face-off in the animated movie where they were throwing things at each other. So here they're using their beams back and forth. Electra Woman, though, gets knocked out in the end.
Yep.
Yeah. The more experienced crime fighter gets knocked out by her own. I guess you figure if, she's holding back. Yeah, because it's like it's Dyna Girl, and now Dyna Girl
has the advantage of being evil and just taking delight in knocking out Electra Woman.
Right, and not holding back and saying, well, I'll only graze you or something like that. It's like, bang, you got the full blast.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yep. So with her knocked out, the three of them escape, and they take Frank. He's getting out of the basement. We asked about that. Does Frank ever leave? Well, guess what? It's forceful, but he left.
Very rarely does Frank see the light of day. Deep underground like a mole person.
Imagine if they'd done that, like they step out of the house, the front of the house there, and Frank's just sort of putting his hands up to the sun, going, ah!
Yeah. Just starts burning up, just collapses into a pile of dust.
But not before Dyna Girl has her power locally locked so that, nobody can cut her off from doing what she needs to do with the Electra comp.
Yes.
I like that. Yeah.
She has the PCL, the personal control lock.
Yep. They take him back to their headquarters there, where Frank does make an attempt to try to escape. And this is the point where we find out the genie has no real powers.
Here is my diagram of the city bank, which is the richest that would do.
Stop! I will detain him, oh great Ali.
Just grab him and stop with the silly tricks.
Tricks?
It's all been an illusion, my friend. Genie is my faithful partner. He's very real indeed.
Yes, just another clever trick with a smoke pellet. When the smoke clears, here's your genie. No magic, just another evil henchman.
Electra terrific! Genie is a phony! I love it!
And because of the metamorphosis formula, we now have you, Dyna Girl. We need no silly tricks.
When do we knock off the bank?
We leave right away.
Electra, fantastic!
Yeah, and Dyna Girl just seems delighted. She's like, great, you're using tricks? Fine, whatever. This is great. I'm evil. And then they're going to go rob a bank.
Yes. Yep. Yep, with Frank trying to talk her out of it. And then this gets interesting because now it's like, okay, Electra Woman comes around, she races to the hideout and leaves the professor behind who's trying to cut off the power to Dyna Girl's Electra comp using Crime Scope. So you've got a new operator at the computer.
Yeah, Nabokov has slipped into the Heflin role back at Electra-Base.
Yes. Oh, man. So Electra Woman shows up. She manages to get captured again, but as she does, the professor manages to break through and get the computer to do what he wants, including, if I remember correctly, isn't there even, as he does it, a ta-da?
Proceed! I've done it! Now for Dyna Girl.
I think so. Yeah, I think there is. But yeah, he restores the power. Alibaba hits the gong, which is deafening Electra Woman.
Yep.
But it's stopped by the professor.
Yep.
Heflin
And he
has the spray, the formula, and just sprays Dyna Girl like you'd spray a bug with a can of Raid.
Yep.
And which magically wipes all the gray makeup off her face, and she's back to normal.
Electra, wow! Oh, is it good to be back! Quick, Electra Woman! Stop him at that gong. It creates illusions.
Maybe we can put a jaw on his plans with Electra Freeze.
You're too late, Electra Woman.
My beautiful gun.
Did you also notice that when she was evil, she looked a little bit more mature? She didn't look as youthful.
It did kind of, when your face is completely gray, that does kind of detract from your youthful exuberance.
Right.
But I mean, she was just killing it in that role, though. She was having so much fun being evil and very effectively. And I would think maybe even scary to think about, like, young kids who are fans of Dyna Girl must have been quite rattled by evil Dyna Girl this week.
Yeah. Yeah, I could, and think about it. They left it off that she was evil at the cliffhanger, so you had a whole week to wait to see how was Electra Woman getting out of this.
I didn't even think about that. Those poor children spent a week in a world where Dyna Girl is evil.
What kind of a world? Could you just see them wandering around the like schoolyard in an existential, malaise? Not realizing they were in an existential malaise because they're kids.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know what is good, what is evil. Nothing makes sense anymore. My world is gray. It's as gray as Dyna Girl's face.
I did like also the fact that Electra Woman uses the freeze ray to destroy the gong.
Yeah, and the gong, again, it's off camera. You hear like a gong shattering sound effect.
Yes.
They couldn't pull off the visual effect of actually showing the gong being destroyed, and then they just cut back to some plexiglass shards where the gong used to be.
Right. But with Electra Woman, free and Dyna Girl, back to her normal self, they're able to quickly round up Alibaba and the genie. And, I thought this was weird, the ending, because the professor destroys the formula, but Laurie and Judy are both regretting it because they want to see Frank smile more.
Yes, I do like that. The opposite of Frank's normal personality would be happiness.
Happiness.
Frank is clearly frustrated and miserable all the time. If we had the formula, we could turn him around. But they're just kind of chuckling over that very thought at the end.
Yes. And they actually get a smile out of him.
Yeah. There's a lot of those final scenes would be just kind of some kind of gentle ribbing at Frank's expense, and we get more of that here, but even crazier than usual in that they're talking about literally how miserable he is all the time, in that the exact opposite of Frank Heflin would be a happy person.
Yes. Oh, man. So let me ask you this. Anything else you wanted to touch on here in terms of this story that we didn't get to?
I think this was such a fun episode, and really, as I said, one of the highlights of the series is seeing evil Dyna Girl. That's such a crazy fun twist, which really makes this episode stand out. And Sid Haig on top of that. I'm such a fan of Sid Haig, so the combination of getting Sid in this as an evil genie plus evil Dyna Girl, this is one of the best.
Yeah. I totally agree. I'm going to also throw in, though, because I'm was a huge fan of his. Before I even made the connection of him being in Star Trek and Batman of Malachi Throne. I just, once I found out who the man behind the mask was in False Face, I was like, I have to learn more about this actor. And every opportunity there's ever been, like where there's an episode of, Wild Wild West, and there's Malachi Throne. I've never watched Wild Wild West, but I'm going to watch this for Malachi Throne.
Yep. Yeah. He was even in that It's a Bird, It's a Plane, It's Superman, the musical.
My fellow hoods, let me make one thing perfectly clear. There's somebody we gotta take out. Somebody's given crime a very bad name.
Marlon Brando?
No, you dummy. I'm talking about the big time. I'm putting out a contract on Superman.
Superman? But how can we rub him out?
That's for you slobs to figure out. But I tell you this. If that bum is bothering me by the end of this week, you'll all be sent up to the big state pen in the sky. You got me?
Boss, that's...
Now listen. For the mug who rubs Superman out, there's a very big reward.
A reward, your boss?
What? Florida.
Oh, but your boss, the Superman, he's special.
Yeah, geez, can we do it?
Come here.
Come here.
Come here.
Look out that window. What do you see?
A street light. A hooker.
A mugger.
No use, dummies. Raise your horizons. Higher. Now what do you see?
A street light. A hooker.
A mugger.
Was he? Okay, now I have a reason to watch that.
Yeah, I believe I'm recalling from when I looked at his credits, because probably not the Broadway version, but the TV special version of that musical, I think he's. And I watched that only once. It's a chore. It's pretty crazy to get through, but it's weird and funny, and some really fun people are in the cast, and I believe he is in that. So that's worth taking a look at. That's a crazy show.
Then definitely going to have to go looking for that now. Okay, all right, I'm in. Just for some Malachi Throne, though.
Oh, yeah. And Loretta Swit is in it. Al Molinaro is in it. There's a wacky cast in the TV version of the Superman musical.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. How would you, if you were Dyna Girl and you just watched this episode, how would you Electra exclaim this?
I have an answer for this one, because a Dyna Girl quote that I didn't point out as we were going along, one of my favorites, when Dyna Girl turns evil, she looks at Electra Woman and says, "You Electra turkey." And man, I love that. I mean, turkey, George Jefferson was always calling people jive turkeys.
Yes.
Turkey was such a 70s insult.
Oh yeah.
And here's Dyna Girl calling Electra Woman a turkey. I loved. And so I would sum up this episode with the word Electra turkey, which sounds bad, but I mean that in a good way. I like turkeys. And also everything's opposite, because we're using the professor's formula.
Yes. I was stuck for one here, and the only thing I could come up with, and it's sort of also sounding negative, but it works with the whole theme. I was just going Electra Gray, because you pointed out the gray face and everything. But I love this. I think this was a lot of fun. Watching Malachi Throne ham it up, Sid Haig, yep, absolutely. And of course, evil Judy, evil Dyna Girl. You can't beat that. And this one definitely has a lot of Batman DNA on it. So this is one of those ones I can hold up and go, see, I'm justified in covering these.
Oh yeah, there are very direct ties to Batman through this whole series, of course, but especially this episode, especially considering the guest cast.
Exactly. Yep. Okay, so as we come to the end of this episode of the Batcave podcast, Kevin, what's happening over at the Flopcast these days?
Yes, that's my regular podcast every week, is the Flopcast, part of the ESO network, and that's me and my co-host Cornflake. And we just try to make it as silly and nerdy as possible, and with an emphasis on kind of 70s and 80s pop culture nostalgia kind of stuff. So we've discussed things like Electra Woman on the Flopcast all the time. We are a barreling towards Flopcast episode 500. That's going to be coming up in a few weeks. So we've been doing this for, almost 10 years now.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. And I'm loving what you're doing with the Backs of Life.
That's right. Yeah, that might be of interest to Electra Woman fans as well. We're huge sitcom fans, and the Facts of Life, of course, classic 80s sitcom. That's our little project for the year. Is every month or so we dedicate an episode to looking at a backdoor pilot episode of the Facts of Life, because over the run of that show, Facts of Life ran for 9 years, something like that, a long-running show, and every year or so they would try to launch a spin-off series out of Facts of Life by doing a backdoor pilot episode, and they did a bunch of them. Probably more than any other show has ever done. They attempted so many backdoor pilots to try to launch a spinoff. None of them worked. They resulted in 0 actual spinoff series. But we're looking at all the backdoor pilot episodes one by one over the course of the year, and we're still in the middle of it right now. We've got a bunch of fun ones coming up.
Isn't that just so funny, though, because you got shows like Happy Days that had all their spinoffs, and All in the Family, and Mary Tyler Moore, and then you get Facts of Life, which was itself a spinoff of... It
started as a backdoor pilot episode, right. of Different Strokes, of course, because Mrs. Garrett was the housekeeper on Different Strokes. So, yeah, right. it was born as a backdoor pilot and attempted to spawn many spinoff series, and none of them really happened.
Wow, that's something. But yeah, definitely be checking that out there, folks. A lot of fun. You can find the Flopcast on any of your major podcasting platforms like Stitcher Radio. I am correct in saying Stitcher, right? I should let you do that part.
As far as I know, you can find us anywhere you find podcasts. You can just look us up on our website is flopcast.net, and we're also on the ESO network.
There you go. As I'm quickly discovering, because whenever I do a search for like Batcave Podcast, I suddenly find it being listed on some of these really small, obscure websites that are also promoting podcasts. And there's all the episodes ready to go and download. And I'm like, well, God bless you. Thank you for that. I didn't ask you to do it, but, okay.
Yeah, there's all sorts of weird podcast services out there, and they all just catch all the podcasts and load them up. So I don't know where you can find us. We're everywhere.
Speaking of finding, you can also find the Batcave Podcast pretty much anywhere as well. As I say, Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, that's our mainstay there. Or you can find everything all collected together over at the Batcavepodcast.com. Head over to our Facebook page, our Twitter handle, Batcave Podcast. We just having a lot of fun there and continuing this look here at all those shows. We're getting back into the swing of things, with Joe Stuber as we're looking at the Filmation 77 series, Joe Crow as we're looking at Monster Squad, Jim Beard and I looking at the 40s movie serials, Dan Greenfield and I looking at the 66 comic, and Robert Long and I, we just recently wrapped it up. You heard it here, folks, on the podcast. Our look at those really god-awful Batman movies that are homages to the 66 series, be they unlicensed or be they fan film, also unlicensed, but at least they're fan films. They're not really trying to make a profit off the deal. So stay tuned for all that. Make sure you're subscribed and you're always catching those new episodes. Next time that Kevin and I get together...
Merlin's mirror, can't you see?
Yeah. Dyna Girl!
Next week, the sorcerer returns with a magic mirror, and Electra Woman and Dyna Girl find themselves in a new dimension.
Electro weird! We're gaining on them! Faster than you think, Dyna Girl. Quick, the electrocomps.
Your electrocomps are no good here. This is another dimension.
And the sorcerer has some more tricks up his sleeve. Join us next week for all the excitement.
We're going to be sort of going back to one of the original villains in this series as we have the return of the sorcerer.
That's going to be good.
That's going to be good, yeah. So until next time, folks, thank you so much for listening. Once again, Kevin, everybody, take care.